So, GB News have effectively sacked Lawrence Fox and Calvin Robinson. And I saw this coming really because GB News has been probably one of the most massive disappointments in mainstream media, because I was quite excited when it came out. I mean, the concept and everything and the promise of free speech and saying things that the other mainstream media channels wouldn't dare say. And of course, it promised to give a voice to the right wing and conservatives who are marginalised by mainstream media and social media. And so Calvin Robinson put out a video on his Twitter account, and the guy was visibly shocked. I felt quite sorry for him, because the guy isn't hateful or nothing. He is, and I know not all men and women of God are all virtuous, but he seems like a good guy. And for this to happen to him simply for sticking up for someone, one of his colleagues, in trouble, I think it says a lot for the man. And in this video, he completely exposed GB News for what it really is and the direction it's going. And because of this, I won't be watching GB News anymore. It's a place where, as it turns out, freedom of speech is quite discouraged. Anyway, in this video, Calvin Robinson says it all started with the sacking of Mark Steyn. And I even made a video when that happened. I told you guys, GB News is compromised, and I was absolutely right. Because GB News around this time, they told all the staff that it was Mark Steyn's own fault, and he brought it upon himself because he presented his views as fact, and he didn't allow it to go unchallenged. Now, Calvin Robinson says this was a huge red flag for him, and he regrets not doing anything about it. And then GB News went on to blame Ofcom for the whole thing, when in fact it was GB News management who sacked him. And then I think most worrying of all, Calvin Robinson reveals that a member of staff was paid off handsomely by GB News and given a 5-figure sum. And he says he didn't know why she left initially, but then it was revealed it was because she put on a claim for sexual harassment by a senior GB News management. And this, of course, was kept hush-hush. So why didn't GB News management, why didn't they investigate this and deal with it accordingly, instead of giving someone hush money, paying someone off to keep quiet? It just doesn't make sense, does it? And I'm assuming this guy who allegedly sexually assaulted this woman, he's still there. I wonder who it is. Calvin Robinson then goes to mention that one of the major stakeholders in GB News is looking to buy the Daily Telegraph newspaper. Now, he reckons that they were all sacked because they were dissident voices, and in order to purchase a huge newspaper like the Telegraph, that the reputation needs to be squeaky clean. So GB News wants to be more reputable as it prepares to go mainstream. And if you're going mainstream, you have to go with the grain, can't you? So, freedom of speech, my arse. He then reveals he wanted to have Katie Hopkins on as a guest on his show. That was even approved by the CEO. However, GB News management stopped it dead. Because, of course, Katie Hopkins is a huge bogeyman or bogeywoman to the left, and there are left-wingers working at GB News, as I shall reveal later. He then says he fought hard to be able to talk about abortion and the sanctity of life. He fought hard to be able to talk about marriage, and then when he did that part on his show about marriage, members of staff at GB News lambasted him, saying, "You can't say that. So much for the home of free speech." And he says his Christian views were also under attack, and that's no surprise really, because year-round it's open season on Christianity. He also says there's a civil war going on in GB News between the freedom fighters, the dissidents, those who say as it is, and the mainstream presenters, people like Mark Dolan, of course, who are just as fake as they come. Lawrence Fox even labelled him a cosplay freedom fighter, and I think that's true. Calvin Robinson also reveals to us that the people working there are former Sly News and BBC staffers, and they're looking to go back there. So, make of that what you will. They've obviously brought their toxic bias, political correctness, woke nonsense to GB News and spread it like a cancer. He then goes to say that GB News are controlled opposition and has a sly dig at Nigel Farage for going to the Tory party conference and showing political bias. He then makes a link between Nigel Farage going to the Tory party conference and the major shareholder trying to buy the Daily Telegraph. And probably there is a coordinated effort there to push Nigel Farage into some sort of political or another political leadership role. Who knows? And the viewing figures for GB News have almost halved on the 9 p.m. GB News slot, because the Mark Dolan 9 p.m. show, which used to have Calvin Robinson on the panel, has dropped to just 43,000 viewers, and just 26,000 people were watching at the start of the show. And as someone says on social media, people aren't stupid. People are going to see, well, the regular viewers are going to see through this what GB News are trying to do. And Calvin Robinson has completely blown them wide open and exposed them. And hopefully it's the end for GB News. Screw them. If they're going mainstream like Sky News and BBC, Channel 4, etc., then they can go to hell. What a complete and utter betrayal of their core audience this is. I mean, whatever next. I wonder what's going to happen to Dan Wootton, because even though Calvin Robinson and Laurence Fox have been sacked, I don't think they'll sack him, because I think they'll make him do a grovelling apology, and he's that type anyway, isn't he really? I think he'll sell his soul for a job there, not to be trusted. And there we go, that's my video. Please comment, share, subscribe, and until the next time, Roger Trout.